good morning to all of you. As we have started the Great Stone Phase Part 2, and we have done that Ernest has now become an old man. And when he has become an old man, he became the wisest man of the valley. And he was known for his good thoughts, and he was known for his great mind, and people seek advice from him. He had become famous beyond the limits of valley, and college professors and even the active men of cities, they came from far to see and converse with Ernest. Why? Because Ernest was such a wise person that he was having the solution of each and every problem of the people. That's why college professor and the active men of cities used to visit him. And whenever they come to Ernest, they definitely find the solution of their problem, and they feel so good while conversing with Ernest. Now, when Ernest was there in the valley, he had been growing old. At the same time, God had granted a new poet to this earth. And this new poet was the native of the same valley. And he has been admiring the great stone face in his poets. And when Ernest used to read the poems of this poet, at that time he felt so good and so soothing, and he found the similarity of the great stone face in the poet's poetry. And he also started thinking about this thing, that this poet must be the one who would be having the resemblance of the great stone face. Now he wanted to meet this poet, and poet, he heard about Ernest, that Ernest is the wisest man of the valley. He wanted to meet Ernest. Ernest wanted to meet poet. Poet wanted to meet Ernest. Ernest, after his usual customary toil, the whole day work, he used to sit in front of his house and he used to read the poems written by this poet in the praise of the great stone face. One day, this poet came to him, and he came to just find out Ernest. And when he reached an Ernest place, at that time he said, the poet said, come to the page number 133. 133. Good evening, said the poet. Can you give a brother a night's shelter? The poet said to Ernest. And Daddy answered Ernest. And then he added, smiling, I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger. Now you can see on page number 134, you can see Ernest sitting in front of his cottage reading the poems. And then came the poet. Poet came and he just wanted to have shelter at Ernest's place. And just behind both of them, you can see the great stone face smiling. Now the conversation would be in between the poet and the poet and the Ernest. Fine? So let's read from page number 134. The poet sat down beside him, and he and Ernest talked together. Never before had the poet talked with a man like Ernest, so wise and gentle. Now you can see here the adjective used for Ernest, wise, gentle. Please remember all the adjectives used for Ernest. So what happened? Ernest on the other hand, he also on the other hand was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mind. Why? Because poets used to write poetry, and poetry is full of living images. Poetry is full of living images. Now, he was so happy to meet poet, and he was so happy and so touched that how the living images come out of the poet's mind. And one thing more, the very first time it's written the poet sat down beside him. Please children, see the difference between beside and beside. Beside and besides. Beside means the position when one person is sitting with the other that the great stone face was bending forward to listen to, and he gazed into the poet's eyes. When both were talking at that time, the great stone face was just looking at both of them as if he was trying to listen to the conversation between Ernest and poet. "Who are you, my gifted guest?" he asked. Ernest asked, "Who are you?" The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. See, at that time, the Ernest had been reading a book written by the same poet who had come to this place. "You have read this poem," said he. "You know me? Then, for I wrote them. I am the only one who wrote all these poems." Again and again, Ernest examined the poet's features. He turned towards the great stone face and then back. He was just looking at the great stone face and then looking at the poet's face. He shook his head and sighed. He was not at all convinced that the great stone face is the one who is having the poet in front of him. "Why are you sad?" inquired the poet. "Because," replied Ernest, "all through life I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy, and when I read these poems, I hoped that it might be fulfilled in you. I was thinking as if the poetry written by you, I was reading those poems, but I was just thinking about this thing that your face must be resembling the great stone face. But I am quite disappointed. I have been waiting for that face to come, but that face has not come." "You hoped," answered the poet, faintly smiling, "to find in me the likeness of the great stone face? I am not worthy to be the likeness of it." No. "You feel as I am having the likeness of this great stone face?" "Not at all." "And why not?" asked Ernest. He pointed to the book. "You are writing such a good poetry, and why can't your face be like him? Are not those thoughts worthy? Your thoughts are also very worthy. You can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. Because when I am writing poetry, you can hear the distant voice of that heavenly song. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. Whatever I am writing, that has not been harmony with the thoughts of the poem. I am just writing it. They are not being alike. So I have had grand dreams. I have had grand dreams, but they have been only dreams. Because poets, whatever they write, they are not like that. They are their dreams. And sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts also. And I lack in my own thoughts. And why then, pure seeker of the good and true, should you hope to find me in the face of the mountain? Then how could I be a good and a gentle and a wise man of that great stone face?" The poet spoke sadly, and his eyes were wet with tears. Me too were those of Ernest, and he was, like at that time, not very happy. At the hour of sunset, as had long been his custom, Ernest was to speak to a group of neighbors in the open air. Daily it was his work to go there and sit with his neighbor and discuss about their problem, Ernest. Now together he and the poet went to the meeting. At that time, he and the poet, they went into the meeting and placed arm in arm. That means they were going together. From there could be seen the great stone face. Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon his audience. He was like, when he was speaking, the whole audience was dumbstruck and listened to him very carefully. Now what he spoke, that we will do in the next part. Thank you very much.